Hello, welcome to my podcast. My name is Ahmed Mahbub Aga, and I have prepared some topics on the sociological perspectives for Dr. Andrea Rullick's class Soci 1503, in which I am going to dive into the history of sociology up to this day. And I will briefly explain a couple strategical approaches when doing a sociological research. And I will digress to talk about sex and sexuality from a sociological perspective. Sociology was discovered and documented in the 13th century, back then when Ibn Khaldun had accomplished a lot in sociology, economy, and philosophy. He is not a Berber scholar, he is actually from a high-class family from the tribe of Banu Suwaid. As he said in his book Introductory, an introductory to a much larger book that he wrote back in the 13th century. When he was talking about where he wrote his book Introductory, how he wrote it, and so on. There he said that he had wrote his introductory in a castle where he used to live. Ibn Khaldun's book Introductory, section 7. He said in his book the lessons and the deviation of the subject and the predicates in the days of Arabs, Persian, Berbers, and those of their contemporaries of the most powerful, section 6. There he mentioned his family's origin and ancestors. His family originally was from Seville, Spain, or Andalusia back then, and they moved to Tunisia where he was born. Whereas his ancestors' origin is from the tribe of Yemen called Himyar. Ibn Khaldun, long before all those philosophers back in the 13th century, was the first to put the foundation of sociology and called it urbanism in his books. I think him should be called the founder of sociology, and then after him came the father of sociology, the French philosopher Auguste Comte, took his ideas and developed on them, which has led to the development of a new strategical approach to study sociology as a discipline. There is an inevitable connection between individuals and their societies. Therefore, the human behavior at first is much influenced by society. Sociology in general strives for individuals' emancipation, freedom, and transcendence. For example, women's equality with men and amelioration of society, especially for a society that is much like a secular one. Therefore, the three main levels of sociological study of society and cultural are the micro-level sociology, the macro-level sociology, and the global-level sociology. The way that sociology is sometimes used is focused too much on the macro-level sociology and not so much on the micro-level. For example, the media, which plays a big role in targeting the society standards through influencing an interpretational image. Although the dilemmas of the macro-micro divide in sociology, which is the result of the difference in the micro-level sociology of individuals around the world, that ultimately reflects how those individuals were taught in their families. Therefore, the dilemmas are not a dilemma anymore. Rather, it's purely the lack of experience, such that the dilemma in one society's macro-level sociological perspectives becomes a norm in another society's macro-level sociological perspective. Here comes the importance of the sociological research. Our next topic will be on how we can search all available resources, if any, that exist, and choose the most reliable ones to help us understand the sociological interaction between all humankind. There are two main types of sources for the best bet on making a research, which are reputable sources and academic sources. However, the academic sources are more specific because they are produced by someone within the academic system, such as books published by an academic press or peer-reviewed journals, which are very specific and very well revised by peers of the author. Moreover, these academic sources can be retrieved directly from the school library's website, either by a search bar that searches the physical sources at the library, or database searches of that library. On the other hand, if the topic of research very little has been done on it, then in that case only Wikipedia is a good place to start by looking at references and citations within it. In addition, it has in-text citation that can be of a good reference to the topic of interest. Also, it is of a great importance to look at references that are of a close connection to the topic of study, and by just doing that, you have added the first milestone of the research journey. Not to mention that it is important to search existing sources and sift through all related references to make sure not to plagiarize someone else's work and to give credits to who it belongs. The next step in researching a topic is being value neutral as best as you can, which is not completely possible in sociological studies. Therefore, sociologists tend to narratively provide the reader with their point of view and with some objectives and let him or her make conclusions rather than being fully objective and unbiased, which in fact that what put to scale some sociological studies with comparison to others based on the proportionality factor of unbiasedness and objectivity. Some simple acts like drinking coffee, which can have an obvious reason behind them, but to the possessor of the sociological imagination, for example, its use as a drug. Therefore, the sociological imagination ties not just the macro level sociology, but also the global level sociology to fully understand the three dimensions of any act. For example, knowing how coffee and colonialism are related, or coffee and global economy are related. Moreover, the sociological imagination enables us to interconnect history and biography on the widely open side to understand the relation between the two within society. However, to completely understand the present, one needs to read the history to live the future. Neither the life of an individual nor the history of a society can be understood without understanding both. Mills, 1959. While the knowledge that individuals have gained of the indirect connection between the patterns of their own life and the course of world history is merely while they are bounded by all what is going on in the world and truth deep in their hearts, which lead them to the life-changing facts that they have read or listened or taught to them by someone. That, in brief, is why it is by means of the sociological imagination that men and women now hope to grasp what is going on in the world and to understand what is happening in themselves as minute points of the intersections of biography and history within society. And the sociological imagination is the most fruitful form of this self-consciousness. By its use, people whose mentalities have swept only a series of limited orbits often come to fail as if suddenly awakened in a house with which they had only supposed themselves to be familiar. Therefore, the sociological imagination stimulates the mind of individuals to make them think of alternatives or find defined answers to all their doubts or struggles, which absolutely proves how some people can be inspired by things they interact with along their lives that can serve as a guide to the deep truth of their hearts. However, the sociological behaviors of a society and individuals is influenced by the mass communication methods of that society, which leads us to our fourth topic. Mass communication has changed over time from one form to another based on the development of technology and the development in communication methods. Furthermore, handwritten manuscripts have lost its value to printed one and to the availability of radio. The radio eventually lost its contact to TV, which had provided both the functionality of radio and music recording. However, mass communication nowadays is more oriented towards TV and internet-based platforms. Nowadays, billions of dollars are being spent every 4 years on federal elections in the United States, mostly toward political ads. Moreover, the social media platforms are playing an increasingly important role in communicating ideas and preaching informations to a wider range of people than ever before. Amongst all of that, there are two types of people who watch the news. The first type of people who listen and watch the news carefully so they can know what is going on around them. Then those types are less critical thinkers and more like taking for granted else's conclusions and thoughts. The second type of people who listen to many sources of news to arrive at a conclusion of their own, different from what they have listened to. The second type of people are better at making judgments and critical thinking. Moreover, they are following the critical process steps of description, analysis, interpretation, evaluation, and engagement. This brings us to our fifth and last topic for this term. Sex, in terms of science and biology, is the category that distinguishes between male and female based on their genetics and chromosomal differences, which identifies a female with an XX pair of chromosomes and identifies a male with an XY pair of chromosomes. On the other hand, there are very few intersex people in the world who are born with the primary sex characteristics of both male and female, which are identified with an XXY chromosomes. Just as much as there are very few people in the world who are born with multiple male genitals. Sexuality starts in adults and sometimes goes beyond that and reflects on children. Therefore, child socialization plays an important role in praising gender attributes, especially through family. Furthermore, parents tend to play differently with their sons and daughters. For example, they tend to play roughly with their sons and more quietly with their daughters. From an evolutionary perspective, those who have been raised by same-sex parents like two women will grow up thinking that it is okay to be a gay or lesbian or so on themselves. However, one from a biological perspective, when she grows up and older and should start to think whether it is right or wrong to live that way. We as humans are weak, which means we cannot bear diseases and viruses. Moreover, those wrong and unnatural ways of sexuality will have a very large physiological and psychological diseases on those individuals who do them. Finally, the sexuality norm in the United States is heterosexual. However, there are a small percentage of people who identify themselves as homosexual. We have talked about the history of sociology and some sociological topics which are closely related to the contemporary sociology, which are the sociological research, the sociological imagination, mass communication, and sex and sexuality. Last thing I am going to say that if we don't recognize and give credit to who it belongs, we are just missing an opportunity for success. I would like to thank you so much for watching this video and all other genuine information you have given me, which have helped me a lot in making this podcast. Thank you and have a good day.